This is Travis Wayne Goodsell, and this is part 2 of Ancient Egyptian Translation Lessons, Introduction. Most people in any particular field generally refer to second-hand sources or secondary source materials or persons or information to do their research on the particular field that they're doing. This is similar with ancient Egyptian. The most common Egyptian grammar is Sir Alan Gardner. He is not the only one who's done grammars, but his has been considered the most significant contribution, and therefore his sign list is what is used throughout most of Egyptological study and research. But again, he is just a secondary source material. Bill Petty's work, as shown here on the screen, is a modern adaptation of Alan Gardner's work, and it's much cheaper, even though he's got several volumes you have to purchase, but overall it's cheaper than the $150 to $200 versions that are available on Amazon for Gardner's Egyptian grammar. But again, Bill Petty also is just a secondary source material, and one might concede a third source material. It is from these secondary source Egyptologists that we get our understanding of Egyptian writing. What you see here is in accordance with Egyptological interpretation and understanding of Egyptian, giving names to all of the characters in the pictures based upon the text. What is interesting to note is that Gardner and others do not utilize any of these pictograms, the pictures that are shown here. They only do the text pictures for their sign lists, and that is how they know who these characters are from the text. But once the identification of the characters are known, the pictures in and of themselves take on levels of meaning, and I will get to that in future lessons. But because Egyptologists do not translate these pictures, there's missing information that Egyptologists leave out, that the ancient Egyptians intended for us to know and understand regarding the various scenes in a papyrus scroll or a carving on a wall or a tomb. And it is necessary, in order to understand how to translate Egyptian, you have to be able to translate everything that is contained on the scene that you're translating. And Egyptologists don't do that. And so I will be instructing you on how to do this and all the various levels of translation. And as a result, we'll be producing a full, complete sign list of ancient Egyptian characters and the whole translation that's involved with each of the different characters as well. Just as a side note for my Mormon audience, Mormons are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, centered in Utah of the United States, and they have Egyptian papyri that was bought by their founder, Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith claimed to have made a translation from the facsimiles. And many people get confused into thinking that he was translating the text. But Abraham chapter 1, for example, of his scripture, clearly states that he's referring to the facsimiles that you see here that were contained on the Egyptian papyri. The facsimile number 2, of course, being the hydrocephalus, and refers to a separate parchment that was under the head of the deceased Egyptian mummy, and so as a result, Mormons would be interested to know that we will be assisting in helping translate their Egyptian papyri as well. There's 2 papyrus scrolls. Joseph Smith referred to one of them as the Book of Abraham, and the other he referred to the Book of Joseph. And so, just as a matter of fact, we'll be leading these lessons so that the Mormon audience can then go to those papyri and make a translation. One thing of note for Mormons, facsimile number 3 on the right, Joseph Smith did not make a translation. He gave explanations, but he only translated facsimile number 1 and facsimile number 2 in the Book of Abraham text. He didn't get to facsimile number 3, and that will be of great interest to Mormons because unfortunately their church has now claimed that Egyptologists are correct that Joseph Smith was not a translator. So I need to defend the church and Mormons against the church's claim that this is incorrectly translated by Joseph. First of all, he never made a translation of this scene, and secondly, the explanations are mostly correct, and I will eventually get to that in these lessons so that you will know how to correctly translate this and identify the manner of translation that Joseph Smith was using, which was a couple of the levels that I will be going over for the full Egyptian translation. So to conclude, we will be utilizing the primary source documents of ancient Egypt. We will not be using any of the secondary source material other than to acknowledge what they have recognized it as. We will translate or instruct you on how to translate not only the text that you see here in this particular scene, but also the characters and the levels of translation for the characters as well. And I'll give more explanation onto the various levels as we go along.